Hello again. Rishi Sunak has a mammoth task ahead of him as he constitutes his new cabinet. He was elected leader of the Conservative Party yesterday, taking over now from Liz Truss, who called it quits last week after a short-term and tumultuous time in office. At just 42 years old, Sunak becomes the youngest Prime Minister in British history. Well, let's discuss the way forward, get the latest now from our UK correspondent in London, Oli Barat. Oli, good afternoon. A lot of history being made just in the last few days in the politics of the UK. Now you had the shortest ruling Prime Minister in history in Liz Truss just last week. Now you have the youngest Prime Minister coming in. I wonder if he's going to make more history as he constitutes his cabinet.
Certainly history already being made by Rishi Sunak, as you say, Dan, the youngest Prime Minister in modern British political history. He is the first non-white UK Prime Minister, the first British Asian Prime Minister, the first Hindu Prime Minister as well. To a certain extent, though, I think Rishi Sunak will be hoping, actually, that instead of making history in the days and weeks ahead, that he can have a bit of a quieter time than has been the case recently for Liz Truss and previously for Boris Johnson before that. He wants to try and move on from what the opposition parties would describe as the chaos that the Conservatives have been ruling over in recent times. He has some very difficult decisions to make as well, and indeed that was the exact phrase that he used on the steps outside Downing Street before going through that famous black door for the first time as Prime Minister. He has some very tough, particularly economic decisions to make in the coming days. And so, as I say, he'd be trying to make sure that he can deliver a more stable government than Liz Truss was able to deliver, and Boris Johnson before that, so that he can address some of those very difficult questions.
Yeah, I mean, there's an economic crisis underway there, but he was also very kind. He had some kind words to say about the predecessor, Liz Truss, saying her mistakes were not intentional.
Yes, but he also said that she'd made some big mistakes and that he would fix them. And it was similar, actually, with Boris Johnson. He paid tribute to his incredible achievements, but he made a big play in his speech outside Number 10 of talking about trust needing to be earned and about integrity being something that he would make sure to deliver in government, professionalism. Those are words that are very clearly aimed in the minds of many people at the Boris Johnson administration too. So when it comes to both his predecessors, he had some kind words, but also some harsh words as well. Rishi Sunak will know very well that the opposition parties will try to continue to tie him to both of those previous administrations. Of course, he served as finance minister under Boris Johnson at a time when the Conservatives started to fall very far in the polls. He didn't serve in the Liz Truss government, but certainly the opposition parties will say, look, this is a Conservative government throughout this period, and that's why they will also continue those calls for a general election. They'll continue to say that Rishi Sunak doesn't have a mandate to govern. From his perspective, in that speech outside Downing Street, he talked about the 2019 manifesto as something that was delivered by the Conservative Party as a whole, not just by Boris Johnson, one individual. That's how he'll try and get out of that accusation that he doesn't have a mandate. He'll say that he's just a Prime Minister trying to deliver a manifesto that led to a winning election back in 2019, just 3 years ago now. It feels a lot longer than that, Dan.
Yeah, it feels a lot longer than that. Very briefly, only as we conclude, when do we expect the new Prime Minister to conclude his cabinet?
It'll take probably the next 48 hours or so in total. I mean, the process is underway. We know a few figures who are leaving government and they'll need to be replaced. We haven't had any of the big name appointments yet. We don't know yet who's Foreign Secretary, Home Secretary, etc. But we will do very, very soon. But then those junior ministerial posts take a little bit longer to appoint. It'll all be done by the end of the week.